So this week we watched Killers of the Flower Moon.
My reaction with this movie is like, you remember the whole Pocahontas meme where the chief is like, "Don't trust these white people," and how we now say it like white people are crazy. Like that's literally my thing with this movie.
This is an interesting project because I remember watching the news kind of fold or kind of unfold as it was getting made. And I know that there were a lot of articles that were documenting the fact that Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio were meeting with Osage leaders and really doing their best to incorporate them into the story, as it was being shaped, as well as the filming of it. I watched a couple of Martin's interviews at, like, BFI and stuff where he talked about the filming of this and how there was just a scene, and I think in the hut, where he just let some of the leaders of the Osage Nation just talk, and they just kept the cameras rolling,
Mm.
um, because they had so many stories and so much to say. And I will say that, like, out of all of the movies about people of color that are made by white people, I think this is probably one of the best just because they took the time to actually listen to the people who they were trying to, like, document. I'm not a Native American person, so I can't speak to how well that was done because I don't know. I feel like from a Black person's perspective, I thought it was done well, but, like, if you're a part of the Native American community, I can definitely see you having issues with it because it is documenting atrocities. I don't know, because how many times have we seen, like, Green Book or things of that nature where you
Yeah,
have white filmmakers take stories that are not that have nothing to do with them and absolutely butcher it. So it's like, I respect Martin Scorsese for trying. Like, whether you thought it actually hit or not, that's your own personal thing. But for me, I thought he did a decent job at trying to do this story in because it's a Scorsese film, it is gonna be centered around crime because those are just the movies he makes. So I don't think he was gonna choose a story that was kind of, I don't know, a coming of age story or anything like that. I don't because that's just doesn't seem like that's his thing, but I do think he tried to do it as respectfully as possible.
I still love this movie immensely. Like, understand this movie is like 3 hours and 30 minutes. It is, and I think as Scorsese is always known for like a long sequence of dialogue. But I do think
Mhm.
as he's gotten older, he's very much stripped down his style. Now he's more focused on, I'm giving you that and a lot more dialogue. So this movie is a really slow burn, but I do love it so much because you get to see De Niro's character, like the veneer of the white savior, just
Mhm.
strip away so slowly. And there are times you
Mhm.
think it's gonna reveal itself because all the Indians, like all the Native Americans, sorry, uh, love him so much. They've done so much for their community, not knowing behind the scenes that he's orchestrating their murders so he can get land and oil in his family, like where he starts praying for them in their native tongue now, and then he goes to like he sees one of their crappy husbands, so he's like, have he's been treating you well, has he feeding you, stuff like that. But underneath that, there's a sinisterness bubbling beneath, which I loved that slow reveal for.
I just have to take a second and talk about Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
First of all, he ate down in this movie. He was To me, him and Lily Gladstone were the stars of the show, like, and that's crazy because, like, how many I've seen a lot of Robert De Niro performances recently. I'm talking about, like, recent performances
Mm.
where it kinda seems like he's just kinda showing up, getting his paycheck, and leaving. So for him to, like, really pull it out on this one, I was like, "Okay, I see you." The fact that he really, like, gave this and made me feel viscerally uncomfortable and, like, creeped out the entire movie, like, he
Yeah.
really set the tone for, like, how you're gonna feel during this. Like, I felt so gross just watching him, like, manipulate and use these people. It was disgusting, and, like, that's the point, like, you're supposed to feel disgusted by the character, and I totally did. And Lily Gladstone, love her. It's funny because it's like, she doesn't there's a lot in the beginning where, like, she's very much in it, and then there's a part in, like, the middle towards the end where she isn't really in it that much because of what they're doing to her, like, she's bedridden. But whenever she does have a scene where she gets to express, because there's, like, I think what I like about her as an actress is that she's very restrained, like, she doesn't give you a whole lot, but you can still feel it. But then there are moments like I there was one scene where she finds out that her sister and her brother-in-law were killed in that fire, and, like, the release of all of that emotion was so good. Like, I like that kind of restraint and then release, like, at the right moments
Yeah.
because then you feel it so much more. She's amazing. She needs to be more things, like, put her in everything. I think she was great. Interestingly enough, I didn't think Leonardo DiCaprio was all that good. Like, I
Yeah.
thought that he did, like, a serviceable job. Like, there were definitely moments where it's like, "Okay, yeah, this is good. I'm with you." But to be the lead, I kind of feel like the other people around him outshone him a lot. I don't know what it is with Leo anymore these days. I feel like we've talked about this multiple times. It's just you know what you're gonna get, and that's it.
I think this is the one of those movies where the ensemble itself is much better than the lead
Yeah.
in an amazingly wonderful way, and I love it so much. Um, and I think that's also due to the role Leo's playing. He's kind of playing a very simple person, but he gives like a very muted, subdued performance. You know, depicting a guy of not the most highest intelligence at all.
Mhm.
Um, what you said about Lily Gladstone and her acting was perfect. Like I love body language and emoting like
Yeah.
without saying anything, and
Yeah.
she is so good at that quiet, simmering intensity that she can just give off.
There were certain moments in this movie that definitely made me feel weird. Like one of the main scenes I'm thinking about is the paddleboard scene where Robert De Niro banks Leonardo DiCaprio with the board or whatever. I'm like, what? To me, that felt like, oh, this is like a historically accurate thing that he felt like he needed to put in here because he also talks about being like a Freemason or I don't know. It was just I was like, I don't the idea that Leonardo DiCaprio's character is under the thumb of Robert De Niro's character is very obvious from like the very beginnings of the movie. Like we know the dynamic here. We know Robert De Niro was in control of the situation. We get this. We understand. Why are we watching this old man spank Leonardo DiCaprio? It just felt weird.
I mean, I think that's the thing. Like people don't realize how much camera angles aid in the telling of a story. Like there are very few scenes of the two of them. Like usually, if you're the dominant person, your camera angle is usually looking down at you, and the other person is like other cameras looking up because your POV is
Mhm.
switching. And they did that. They rarely did that in this movie.
Cinematography was fantastic. And I knew that it was gonna be good from the trailer. When I saw the trailer, I was like, "Oh, yeah, those are some nice shots. Like, this is probably gonna be pretty good." One thing I noted when I was watching, I was like, "People are dying, like, every 5 minutes. Like, people will just be out, killed, shot, done." Like, I was like, "Whoa."
Very
And because
visceral.
it yeah, and the deaths aren't even, like, recognized, really. And the lengths they were going to poison her so she wouldn't be active, I was like, "Girl, we need to leave this relationship." Like, not only was Leo a terrible husband, but he was also racist. Like, I was like, "Please, please get out of this relationship." It really took her a long time. It literally took her finding out that he was poisoning her for her to leave. And I'm like, by this time, he's killed your sister. He has killed other members of your family. Like, that was the final straw. I was like, I can't believe this. But I guess it was the 20s. So,
And the thing with Leo's character is like his whole motivation is, oh, even though I'm doing these heinous things, I love my wife. Like you don't kill
mm,
the person you love, her whole family if you love
family.
them. Like he played a hand in her all her sisters' deaths except for the first one, you
That first
know.
one, right?
Oh, and all the death he didn't play a part was the mother. Although if you realize all your children are dying, as an old person, that is gonna like take a emotional, physical, spiritual toll on you, which leads to your death. But him saying I love my wife through all this blah blah blah, like Leo's like this is like the most punchable character Leo's had
Oh, yeah.
since Django Unchained, you
Django.
know.
Yeah.
But Django it worked because Django because he's playing into it, like he's hamming it up a bit more, but this one is just like
hmm
so sinister and like uh
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's the feeling. Ugh, it does speak to a bigger thing, which I think that we're all experiencing now. You do have you do have people in society who are like helping, have philanthropic kind of ideals, but they're really in it for themselves and for money. Like they're not actually trying to help other people.
It's comic book villain 101. Be famous business
Mm,
person, be evil, but also give money back. Because you give money back, it makes you look good, but you get a tax break. I do love the fact they also mentioned Tulsa
yeah,
riots in
the
this
was it
picture.
black?
Um because I think now post Watchmen Fort, it pushed that atrocity up more in recent years. You've been hearing more people talk about, more people bringing up Black Wall Street, all that kind of stuff. But this movie kind of hits on two things. It's like pervasiveness of whiteness. When you have your
Mm,
status and privilege, you think you can do whatever you want and get away with it.
mhm,
And also, it's this movie is a very cautionary tale and story of something that happens to us as minorities. When I say minorities, I mean black, brown people, Native American, Asian. When we come to this country and a lot of our cultures, like if you look globally, a lot of non-Caucasian cultures are very community oriented,
mhm,
and usually what happens in a lot of these countries is once we get involved in the trappings of capitalism and wealth and stuff like that, everything gets flipped onto its head and it falls apart. And I do think this movie from the Native American experience is also expressing that. Like the leadership says, we knew once we got the white man's money, these things would happen, because
mhm.
this is not the way we live, that kind of thing. Like it's a cautionary tale, and them having that money also ended up making the white men jealous because they're really frivolous with it, doing whatever they want doing it. It's like a really cautionary tale how wealth can change and affect you on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's very true. Just like the dangers of capitalism, which is couldn't be more timely. But I also liked how they were weaving together different historical events that were happening around the same time. It was an extremely long movie, and I felt the runtime. I did feel the runtime, but on reflection, I think it did make sense. Like I think you kind of needed to take that time to plot all of those little seeds and really watch how it grows because it wasn't just about this tragedy, but it was also about like the start of the FBI and like how they were getting involved with stuff and again weaving more historical context into the story. So
Apple TV and like Paramount gave them this money and said, "Hey, go make a 3 hour movie." Like,
mhm.
'cause I know Netflix kind of gives them the freedom, like, "Hey, Scorsese, we're gonna throw this money at you, make the movie as long as you want, because on our platform, because people could still pause it and walk away." But Apple was like, "We're gonna give you the money for this as well, and then also have it playing in theaters." But I thought was impressive. People are gonna like award season, like, "Oh, why is this movie up for awards?" Like, because they didn't watch it. It's gonna be one of those movies that people are gonna
Yeah,
be
yeah.
confused as to why, oh, this movie's not good because you didn't watch it. Like, no, the movie's actually good. It's just you got your head so up your ass, you refuse to watch good things sometimes. But yeah.
It was still a really good movie though.
Did you like that clip? Well, you can listen to the entire podcast because the 16mm Film Crew podcast is available on all major podcast platforms.